Television has always been a reflection of life's unpredictability, and no show demonstrates that more than the high-pressure environment of cooking competitions. Among them, Hell's Kitchen remains one of the most intense and dramatic shows ever to hit American television screens. Audiences tune in not just for the food, but for the raw human emotion, the drive to succeed, and sometimes, the chaos that erupts when things don't go as planned. And while viewers are used to fiery tempers, unexpected mistakes, and unforgettable meltdowns, few could ever have predicted the moments when things got so serious that the producers had no choice but to dial those three unforgettable numbers: 911. This is the story of the night Hell's Kitchen had to call emergency services, a story that has lived on behind the scenes, whispered about by contestants, producers, and even some fans who caught glimpses of the chaos unfolding. It wasn't staged drama. It wasn't part of the show's usual theatrics. It was real, it was raw, and it reminded everyone that behind the cameras, these are real people living through real challenges. The incident unfolded during the filming of an intense dinner service in the Los Angeles-based restaurant studio where the show was shot. The dining room was packed with invited guests, the air thick with the sounds of sizzling pans, clanging utensils, and the rapid-fire orders being shouted across the kitchen. The two teams, dressed in their iconic red and blue jackets, were deep into the competition. The stress was palpable. Contestants had already endured weeks of grueling challenges, little sleep, and endless pressure. Every plate mattered, every mistake carried weight, and tensions had been building for days. Among the chefs competing that season was a young man named Jason Miller, a 27-year-old line cook from Chicago who had grown up dreaming of working in a world-class restaurant. Jason was known for his energy, his determination, and his fiery passion for cooking. But what many didn't know was that Jason was also battling exhaustion and pushing himself far beyond his physical limits. During the dinner service in question, Jason was stationed at the meat station, one of the most demanding positions in the kitchen. Steaks, lamb chops, and chicken breasts were flying onto the grill in rapid succession. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he tried to keep up. The first sign of trouble came when Jason stumbled slightly while reaching for a pan. He brushed it off, adjusting his footing and continuing to work. His teammates noticed, but in the heat of service, no one stopped to ask if he was okay. Minutes later, his face grew pale, and he began to breathe heavily. One of his fellow chefs, a contestant named Sarah Thompson from Boston, glanced at him and asked quietly, "You good, man?" Jason nodded, brushing it off, but Sarah's concern lingered. As the orders piled up, Jason suddenly grabbed the counter for support. His knees buckled, and before anyone could react, he collapsed onto the floor. Pans clattered, steaks burned, and chaos broke loose in the kitchen. For a split second, the competition stopped mattering. Contestants froze, staring in shock, while Sarah rushed to Jason's side. The show's head chef and host, Michael Anderson, immediately shouted for everyone to stop. "Medic! Get over here now!" he yelled, his commanding voice cutting through the panic. The on-set medical staff rushed in, but it quickly became clear that Jason needed more help than they could provide. His pulse was weak, and his breathing shallow. Within moments, one of the producers pulled out a phone and made the call. 911. What followed was unlike anything viewers had ever seen on the show. While cameras continued rolling, the producers made the decision to cut the feed and not include the raw footage in the final episodes. Contestants were ushered out of the kitchen, and guests in the dining room were quietly informed that the service was over. Behind the scenes, paramedics rushed into the studio, their equipment in tow. They worked quickly, stabilizing Jason and preparing him for transport. Contestants stood silently in the hallway, some with tears in their eyes, others whispering prayers under their breath. Sarah, who had been the first to notice something was wrong, later recalled how helpless she felt in that moment. "We were all so focused on winning, on proving ourselves, that we forgot how fragile we all were. Jason was like a brother to us in that kitchen, and seeing him like that shook us to the core." Jason was taken to a nearby hospital, where doctors later confirmed that he had suffered from severe dehydration and exhaustion, compounded by the relentless stress of the competition. He recovered after several days of rest and treatment, but his journey in the competition ended that night. Producers made the difficult decision to withdraw him from the show, prioritizing his health over the game. When the rest of the contestants returned to the kitchen the following day, the atmosphere was somber. Michael Anderson gathered them around and spoke honestly. "Last night reminded us all that this is just a competition. At the end of the day, nothing is more important than your health and your safety. Cooking is about passion, but it's also about knowing your limits. Don't ever push yourselves to the point where your body gives up on you. The incident was a turning point in that season. Contestants who had previously been bitter rivals began to show more compassion toward one another. Small acts of kindness, sharing ingredients, helping plate dishes, offering words of encouragement, became more frequent. The show, which had always thrived on conflict and intensity, suddenly carried a new layer of humanity. As for Jason, while he never had the chance to return to the competition, his story didn't end there. After his recovery, he went back to Chicago, where he opened his own small bistro. In interviews later, he said that collapsing on national television was both the most terrifying and most life-changing moment of his career. "It forced me to stop and think about what really mattered," he said. "Winning a competition would have been great, but surviving, learning, and growing, that's worth more than any trophy." Fans who learned about the incident through interviews and behind-the-scenes accounts were deeply moved. Many wrote letters to Jason, expressing their support and admiration for his courage. His story became an inspiration, not just for aspiring chefs, but for anyone chasing their dreams while struggling with the pressures of life. The night Hell's Kitchen had to call 911 stands as a reminder that behind the glamour of television and the thrill of competition, there are real people facing real struggles. It was a night that brought everyone together, contestants, producers, viewers, and fans, around the shared understanding that life is fragile and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help. Years later, people still talk about it, not as the night the show almost lost a contestant, but as the night the show gained something far more valuable: perspective, compassion, and the understanding that true victory is not about being the last chef standing in the kitchen, it's about standing tall in life, healthy and strong, ready to face whatever comes next.